So you'd like to take flattering portraits with a modern lens and without any retouching. This sounds like some kind of pipe dream. Modern lenses today are sharp corner to corner, even often from wide open. So for portraits, they're not the best. Some say they're over clinical, too digital looking. And for me personally, I often use mist filters. What we need is a company to make us an imperfect lens, which would be perfect for portraits. Now that is the start of today's video. Today I'm going to share the 7Artisans 75mm 1.4 L mount lens, also available in other mounts. Perfect wide open for female portraits and costs under $200. Coming up, everything you need to know about this lens, and I'm going to compare it to other 75mm lenses for Leica L mount. Welcome, Matt here from MrLeica.com, as someone that's been reviewing cameras and lenses for over a decade and someone who teaches model photography. I thought this lens test would be right up my street. Join me as I take it with me on one of my workshops, and I'm going to show real world testing, and then we'll get into the details and we'll do the usual side-by-side comparisons to other popular 75mm lenses. If you're new here, I teach Leica photography workshops and model photography. Students often fly in and meet me in London, or I meet them in Europe. And in this instance, my student flew in from Germany. He brought his M11P, I had my Leica SL2S. We both had film cameras. He had the M6, I had the M7. And for all photos, I was using the brand new or newish 75mm 1.4 7Artisans lens. I was confident I could get good images from this lens, so I didn't take any others for digital photos. This is L mount, as you can see. All details are coming up. Here you can see the size difference compared to the M11 with a 35mm Summilux. And here are the first sample photos that give you a hint that this lens could actually be quite enjoyable to use. Normally for the workshops we start with a coffee and then we hit the streets if people want to do a bit of kind of street photography with their Leica M cameras. This was us walking around Brick Lane. It's really nice for testing lenses. There's always lots to do. We're really lucky to have hot to dry weather in London, so it's time to stop for a drink, a bite to eat and recap what we'd done in the morning. While discussing the different cameras, our cameras on the table caught the eye of people on the neighbouring table, and it turned out they were photography students. Now if you want a girl magnet, the M11P definitely gets more attention than the Leica SL2S. Fun fact. And here's an example photo of these awesome students. I need to send them that photo. Okay, the lens design and a bit more about the lens. So first, a big thanks to 7Artisans for sending this lens for review. It allows me to show you guys what this lens can do. The lens comes with a metal screw-on front cap and a plastic back cap, but no lens hood. You may want to get a hood if you're shooting in sunny conditions, as we'll see. 58mm front filter thread, and this is L mount, which means it's going to fit on like a SL cameras, CL cameras, Lumix S5, S9, S1R, all those sorts of cameras. So it is manual focus only, not rangefinder coupled, so it won't work on a Leica M mount camera. And it's basically a hybrid between an M lens and a native L mount lens, which tends to be focused by wire. This is full mechanical, although it probably does benefit from software as well because it's got the electronic contacts. 0.7 meters close focus distance, obviously through to infinity. And then in terms of optical design, it's 6 elements in 6 groups. And it's got, I believe 13 rounded aperture blades. I can put it on the screen. This gives really nice bokeh once you stop the lens down. And then it's got a maximum aperture of 1.4. There you can see the blades, really nice if you like your bokeh shots, especially stop down. Lens weight 408 grams. Okay, next let's look at the lens characteristics. All photos shared in this video are shot with the Leica SL2S as raw unless it mentioned otherwise on the screen. So first, vignetting. This image shows vignetting at 1.4 and maybe a little bit at f2, but if we do a open sky shot, you can see vignetting down to maybe f2.8, f4. Sun stars, this lens is more of a sun spray than a sun star. I did try in various conditions and the best you can get is a spray. Lens flare, as you may have noticed from that last shot, this lens does flare quite heavily in certain instances, so you may want to use a lens hood. As you can see here, it can be really pleasing for portraits, so it depends on the look that you're going for. I actually quite like veiling flare. Lens bokeh, here you can see the effect of the bokeh stop down. This generally has more round bokeh, as I tried to show in this video clip, but in certain situations you can get more elliptical bokeh, as you can see in these like real life test shots. Center sharpness, so if we take a center crop from this wider scene, you'll see that the sharpness increases pretty much from every f-stop. It's usable wide open, but it increases a lot as you stop down. Close-up crop, again in the center, again usable wide open, but get sharper stopping down. Here's another real world test shooting this menu. Again, you can use this lens wide open 1.4, which is what I use for all my portraits and how I would use it for portraits. But as you can see, once you stop down, it increased contrast as well as sharpness. Now what about edge sharpness? Because this lens has got less swirl, it's actually usable in the edges compared to many other lenses, but it does increase in sharpness a lot as you stop down. Colours, as you may have seen some other colours so far shared in this video, this lens has nice colours. We headed over to Brick Lane as part of the workshop, and so these are kind of what we saw walking around the streets. Amazing place if you want to shoot some colour. If you've seen my channel before, I normally shoot black and white, but this is definitely a good place to shoot colour. Great colours, no complaints. Now what's about for portraits? As someone that teaches one-to-one private Leica workshops and model photography workshops, as you can see here, this was actually a hybrid. We did Leica workshop in the morning and then model photography in the afternoon. After teaching for over 10 years and also writing the ebook about it, I really value lenses which make better portraits. And so if you're new to model photography, I often think that a softer lens will make it much easier for you, because I find that many students struggle at the editing phase where they're trying to blur a really sharp modern Apo lens, like a perfect lens from say Leica, and then they try to blur the image to make it softer so the skin doesn't look as terrible, and it just results in an awful photo. You're much better to start with say a vintage lens, or in this case a modern cheaper lens which is softer, wide open, and then once you add your preset you'll get a much more pleasing, less digital look. I'll put a link below to my workshops, and if you've not yet got my ebook, again I'll put a link below that tells you everything that I teach in my workshops. Okay, next let's look at some alternative 75mm lenses. So if you're looking for a 75mm lens for L mount, you can either use M mount lenses such as what I use. You've got the Typoc Chimera 75 1.4, Voigtlander Nocturne 75 1.5. I've done reviews of all of these before, I can put some links below. I either use like an M mount lenses via M to L adapter, or you can now get native L mount 75mm lenses, either autofocus such as the Optical 75 f2, which I've reviewed recently, or the new 7Artisans 75 1.4. I'm going to show you sample photos comparing it to the Optical 75 f2 and the Nocturne 75 1.5. I know many of you love that lens, so it's kind of a bit of a benchmark. Now to see how it compares to the Typoc, just use the Typoc video and see how that compares to the Nocturne, and then use that as like your benchmark. So with that, let's look at some side-by-side testing. Okay, edge sharpness. So taking a corner crop, you'll see the 7Artisans images on the top, Voigtlander on the bottom. The Voigtlander is sharper with less flare, and then the same with the Optical, also sharper, less flare. Now center sharpness. Same image. The 7Artisans is better in the center against both lenses, but the other two lenses are better in both instances. Now what about for crop in the center up close? Again, the other lenses are sharper than 7Artisans, but the 7Artisans isn't too bad. That's why it's quite nice with portraits. It's kind of sharp enough but not crazy sharp. The sharpest is the Optical 75 f2 at f2. And just for bokeh, for context, here you can see the bokeh is actually better than the Voigtlander at 2.8. Now if you like using both film and digital, yes, L mount cameras are great. You've got all the ergonomics and ease of use, amazing viewfinders, things like that. But if you use M mount cameras as well, such as the Leica M7 film camera I have here, by investing in M mount 75mm lenses, I can use the same, say, Typoc and Voigtlander lens on either the M7 and the Leica SL2S. One feature you may overlook when looking at M lenses on L mount cameras is if you use a M to L helicoid adapter such as this one from Light Lens Lab. Although most of these lenses natively focus to around 0.7 meters, the limitation of L mount lenses is you can't go closer than 0.7 meters, whereas if you use say the Typoc, which actually goes to 0.6 meters, if we pop that on the L to M helicoid adapter, there you can see the lens on the helicoid moving closer, so I reckon 0.35, 0.4 meters compared to the native 0.6 meters on this lens. Now the counter argument is if you're using L mount lenses on a L mount camera, you can then use autofocus lenses such as the Optical, which we reviewed recently. That's a big advantage of L mount compared to M mounts, because obviously M mount is manual focus only. The 7Artisans lens is kind of in between. We should probably put it like here. It offers you L mount to go straight onto your camera, but doesn't offer you the ability to close focus via a helicoid, and it doesn't offer you the ability to have autofocus like most other L-mount lenses, so it's kind of in between. Price wise, the 7Artisans and the TT-Artisan are roughly the same price, around £200 or $200, and this is a much cheaper option compared to the things like the Type-Ox Samara lenses and the Voigtlander Nocturne. I think both of these are around about £800-ish, $800 approximately, so much cheaper price. The TT-Artisan also gives you autofocus. The TT-Artisan is only f2, that's the only drawback compared to 1.4, which is the 7Artisan lens. In terms of can you get creative images from any of these lenses, the answer is of course yes. I was very happy with my image quality from the 7Artisan lens. Yes, it's a bit soft, wide open, but that's perfect for portraits, so it actually worked really well and kind of in my favour. I didn't need to use mist filters like I would do on many other modern lenses. I'd say drawbacks, you're not going to get the build quality of a lens from say Voigtlander or Type-Ox when it only costs £200. I know some of you really hate when f-stops are different distances apart, which you've seen more recently in recent years, where historically they'd be evenly placed. The focus is smooth and dampened, but maybe not quite what you'd get from more premium lenses. The aperture scale doesn't feel particularly beautiful to move, but it works, so that's all we really need. And as mentioned, this is an L-mount lens, so this will not fit on your Leica M camera. Okay, so my conclusion. If you know that you're never going to buy a Leica M-mount camera and you're very happy with your L-mount cameras, then these lenses offer a fantastic value proposition. Yes, M lenses are very nice, but for £200 or $200, either the TT-Artisan or the 7Artisan 75mm lenses like a steal, especially if you get like a cheaper camera such as the Lumix S5, buy that used, or any other Nikon Z, Canon R or Sony E-mount used camera. This lens plus a cheaper used camera will give you a really cheap kind of portrait setup. I would happily use this lens on my Lumix S5 and shoot a whole portrait session, and I'd be pretty sure that I can get some decent results. So yes, other lenses are made better, and yes, other lenses are sharper, but if I'm using this kind of the example of this video, if you do want a lens for portraits, you don't necessarily want a crazy sharp lens. So for that reason, I think this lens is really good for portraits. If we flip the argument, do you just want a sharp lens, then this lens isn't for you. Most modern lenses are sharp and digital looking, kind of off the shelf at all price points. The TT-Artisan is a better example of that. It's sharp at f2 and I needed to use a mist filter. If you prefer sharp and if you're on autofocus, I'd look at the TT-Artisan and not the 7Artisan. If you prefer manual focus, you don't mind stopping down to get that increased sharpness, check out the 7Artisan 75 1.4. Thanks for watching, thanks for my amazing patrons, and links below to the lenses and mentioned videos.